Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our guest, DOYINSOLA Ogunye, is the founder of Kids Beach Garden, a non-commercial beach that promotes healthy environmental practices that help promote and maintain a sustainable environment for all. Today, Doyin will be telling us how we can all be involved, from what to do when we think we found an endangered species on the beach, to the little steps we can take in our daily living. Good morning, Doyin. Welcome to the morning show. Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So when my producer sent that amazing video, the first thing I was in awe. So how many times do you get to see a turtle like that?
Well, in their nesting season, which is right about now, from November to April, so many turtles, different species, come to the beaches to nest. And when that happens, most of the time, they are poached for food or for trafficking, basically.
And so that was a leatherback sea turtle.
Yes,
and do you see that particular species?
That was the first time in my life I found a leatherback. And it's endangered, and it's also the biggest on Earth.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow. And so tell us some of the challenges with this leatherback turtle. I know that they are endangered, and they very few in the... Tell us the story about how you found it to start with.
Okay, this particular turtle I was actually sleeping because I was tired from the day before. And I got a call that, oh, they found a turtle, that they're going to bring it to me. I'm going to buy it for 500,000 naira. And I was like, wow. They said, it's very big, that, you know, that I should just make sure that, you know, I buy it. And I said, okay, no problem, just start coming. So eventually it took about 3 hours, and eventually they came, and then I saw it, and I was like, wow. And when I saw it, the first thing I said to them was, I have 10,000 there. From 500,000. And all of them got really obsessed that, no, they're going to kill it. And there's so many things I couldn't even record because they almost started becoming violent because they were angry. And, you know, they had them saying, oh, they've not had sleep since 4 a.m., that they went to pick it. And we started to explain to them that this is critically endangered. It's a crime to actually, you know, pick this thing up. It came to nest. And the funny thing is they know that when the turtles come, they come to nest. So they were even telling me, I'm like, so exactly, you know these things. So why don't you just let the turtle go? They said, no, that the ocean, they can't take anything from the ocean and all that. And I found at that time that I was losing the battle because we're just two, my partner and myself. And there were almost 40 of them.
Well, what did they think you were going to do with this turtle and asking you to pay that huge sum of money?
Okay, usually they know it's a trend, it's a culture. You know, a lot of people see turtles like this and they, you know, they are moved by emotion, and then they will do anything to make sure that this turtle, you know, goes back. So usually people buy it off them. So what you would hear in their own lingo, they will say it in Yoruba, "Shoti bele out," like, have you built the turtle out? Have you paid for it, basically? And, you know, people pay as much as 100,000, sometimes 60,000, you know, to get the turtle back into the water. And sometimes they will go into the water and then pick it up again. So it became a trade, you know, it became, you know, a trend, you know, in the coastal communities in Lagos State. And when I found that out, because it happened to me as well, I said I would not do that anymore. So I called for enforcement. And sadly, nobody in the government, in the federal government, nobody listened and nobody called. And that's when I took it to, you know, social media, because I found out that I was already losing the battle. I wasn't getting any help at all. And then after, I think, about 4 hours, I was really exhausted. And eventually, I moved up to 15,000, and they were at 300,000. You know, and eventually, they started, you know, the leaders, you know, there's somebody called Champion. He was actually the one that lured them to for them to bring the turtle to me, because they were going to sell it to, you know, some Chinese men. And then he was like, the only reason he did that was because he respects me and he sees that I do it all the time. So that's why he lured them to bring it, you know, the way. So he now told them, you know, that, Otikpari is finished in the ocean, don't you know, and all that. So eventually, you know, the volunteers, the people that actually helped us move it back into the ocean. I give them a token, like a compensation to say thank you, you know, for their work, and then we pay the transportation for the bus that brought it to us.
So you said you did say that you called for help. You said you called the relevant government agencies, because I read your epistle about this event on your social media handle, and you said no one came to the rescue. Which agencies did you call? What was the exact response they gave you? And perhaps this was the weekend?
Yes, it was a Sunday.
So
yes,
did this play a role in their response? What did they tell you, and what agencies were they?
Okay, I would say that, first of all, before I mentioned the agency, I would say, because it sounded very absurd to me, that if, for example, you have thieves in your house, you know, you would naturally call the police because they are to enforce. And then imagine you're calling the police, and the police is telling you that, oh, why don't you negotiate with them? You know, the police is telling you that, oh, why don't you send us an email on Monday? You know, let's see what we can do on Monday. You know, when you're in the heat of the moment, you know, they're telling you, oh, we're so far away, there's nothing we can do. Oh, we're in Abuja. Oh, there's nothing we can do. And I found that very disheartening. And I said, what is going on in Nigeria if environmental enforcement, NESRA, is actually doing this? How much more the regular person on the street? And I was taken aback. You know, the police force, they were actually not there to protect, but they were just there to observe, because there was a uniformed man in one of my videos, and he wasn't there to protect me or the turtle. He was just there to take pictures. And I said to myself that, where are we going as a nation if this kind of thing is happening, you know, literally at our backyard? Because Lagos is a coastal community, and this is an international crime, and nobody sees it as anything. You know, you hear people say things like, oh, abroad, that's fine, we can do that, but if you're in Nigeria, you can do anything you want. You know, that's absurd. And the fact that, you know, sea turtles play a very major role, especially to fishermen, because they eat jellyfish that in turn actually kills most of the fish in the ocean. You know, so I think it's something that we should really protect. I think it's something that we should, you know, there are so many African countries, you know, South Africa, you know, Tanzania, Kenya, that actually protect their wildlife. Some of them protect their wildlife with their lives, you know. So we have so much. We have so much, and we can do a lot more than what we're doing now. And that's why I'm trying as much as possible to let people know that, you know, awareness is key. And when you see people doing wrong, you know, you need to correct them.
But is this so much of an awareness issue? Because you did say that the locals at the coastal community understood that this was a rare species and it was endangered, but instead they carried on. So would you say really the attitude of the people in the in the coastal community is that of lack of awareness?
No, they actually have a belief, most of them, because I've not gone to all the coastal communities. I'm still working on that. But they have a belief that anything in the ocean that they catch rightfully belongs to them, you know. But the awareness I'm talking about is the fact that, you know, people in their homes.
Of the law, correct?
Yes.
You're trying to raise awareness so that the government can get more involved in enforcing these types of laws.
Yes, and
correct?
as much as possible, even, you know, people, bystanders, pedestrians, people that see these things can actually do something. You know, people see it and just, you know, take a blind eye and just like, oh, it happens. It does happen a lot in front of Eco Hotel. It does happen a lot at the Palms, Morocco.
What kind of turtles are these that are being sold in front of Eco Hotel?
Olive Ridley turtles, mostly olive Ridley. Sorry, it's a tongue twister.
Those
sometimes.
are not endangered.
They are all turtles. All turtles are endangered as we speak now. Yes, globally. And I was just doing a little research, and I think for the leatherbacks, globally there are about 36,000 alive.
Wow.
Globally. You know, and it's saddening, you know. Just when my video came out,
yes,
around that period, there was also another leatherback in Bielsa that was actually poached, ridiculed, and killed, you know.
Now, this isn't the first time we've seen aquatic animals wash the shore. You've just mentioned Bayelsa, where they had sea turtles as well. In Lagos, we have seen whales, you know, wash the shore, and we've seen the locals in that vicinity, the coastal areas, actually take up cutlasses and cut up parts of these whales, you know, for consumption. So what are you doing in terms of anti-poaching education, awareness, and all of that?
Okay.
Is it inclusive with the locals?
Yes, yes. We actually talk to the fishermen a lot because they need to understand what goes on inside the ocean. Most of them don't understand that. They just believe, oh, anything we see, we catch. There was a time I was in a village called Folu village in Ibejuleki, and they killed a shark, a baby shark. And I said to them that, why are you eating this? And little did they know that, you know, sharks actually, they excrete through their skin. So that means everything on their skin is, most of it is going to be waste, exactly. And you know, there's a high mercury content as well in sharks. They didn't know that, but they were eating it, and they were eating something that was detrimental to their health and their lives as well. You know, so what we're now trying to do is to go to these communities and let them be the fishermen, basically, let them be the ones to protect what is theirs.
Are these the lapses in information, the cultural lapses, the procedural lapses that sort of inspired you to set up your mental and environmental initiative for children in the first case? And can you tell us more about that and what you do?
Okay, yeah, the Mental and Environmental Development Initiative for Children, MEDIC, I established that basically to educate children about the environment, you know, and make sure that, you know, they develop their cognitive skills as well. So it's mental development and environmental development for the children. So basically what we want is to create different initiatives that would encourage children to do better for the environment.
So what children are you thinking? Are these the children from these coastal areas, or what kind of children do you train?
All children.
All
children in schools, in schools, in estates, streets, orphans. So far you're a child and you want to do something for the environment, and you're in a school that, you know, accepts things like that, or your parents actually want you to do things like that, we accept everybody. So we have beach cleanups last Saturday of every month, and we encourage people to bring their kids. So imagine if you're a 4-year-old or you're a 5-year-old, or you have a 5-year-old, and you do things like this, in the next 5-10 years, it will be basically normal, you know, to see people clean the beach.
Indeed. Now more than ever, there's a need to pay attention to the environment. We're recording extreme weather conditions, sea level rising, endangered species are becoming extinct, you know, but you are engaged in an impressionable age of children. I mean, children that at this point believe anything you tell them. But do they question why they have this burden at this age to keep our environment safe? Do they question that? Why do they have to carry this burden and responsibility at this age?
I've really not had any child ask me that, because children like to have fun. And everything we do at the Kids Beach Garden, we always make sure that the children have fun while doing it. And once fun is involved, it's basically easier to get them to do things, and it changes, you know, they're in their formative years, so they do things. And
but do they understand the importance of what they're doing?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. They know the importance. Most of them know the type of aquatics in the ocean. They know what plastic does to the ocean as well. And we're happy that even in the knowing, we're able to get them to actively do something about that.
And have you considered, or does there exist laws, regulations against poaching on our coastal areas?
Yes, yes. We actually have the Endangered Species Act amongst several laws, but, you know, the issue with these laws is the enforcement, you know, the enforcement of the laws. And then you go to this parastatal, they'll say, oh, we're not the ones to enforce, we're just here to educate. And then you go to the next one and say, oh, we're not here to educate or enforce, we're just here to advocate. And, you know, so they just keep passing the buck here and there. So at the end of the day, who will do it? You know, you go to the police, they say, oh, it's the marine police. Or you go to the marine police, oh, we don't have, you know, it's just a big cocktail, you know, it's just exactly, and it gets very frustrating because nobody wants to do it. You know, I'm just one little human being, you know, and I get to enforce basically and say, you cannot do this. This is the future I am going to leave for my children. And I'm not going to do anything. You know, I'm not going to, you know, close my eyes basically and see things like this happen and not do anything about it.
Do you think it is important to raise a community of environmentalists like you as well?
Well, I won't say I'm an environmentalist.
I read something about
you. Know,
I think back in 2016 with the Babatunde Fashola, you did this. I think you were planting trees.
Trees,
as well.
Yes. We do a lot of tree planting. We do a lot of recycling. We do a lot of but that doesn't tag me as an environmentalist. I always like to say that I love the environment, and I would, you know, advocate and I would be an activist for the environment. You get so that a lot of people, okay, let the environmentalists do it. You know, it really doesn't concern us, but it's everybody. You know, if I'm just, I am actually. I didn't study, you know, environmental law. I actually am a lawyer, but I didn't study, you know, biodiversity and all those, you know, science-oriented things in school. But it's something I'm passionate about. And then when your passion drives you, it takes you to places.
So what can we do to get involved?
Volunteer, donate, talk about it as much as possible. Advocacy never ends. So talking about it and getting people to understand why they should actually do it. Plastic, single-use plastic is killing everything in the ocean, and we want people to know that if they can reuse and if they can reduce their plastic waste, it would actually help us, you know, at the beachfront, because everything we do on land, if we don't dispose properly, if we don't recycle properly, it gets into the ocean.
What's the process for volunteering? For instance, if I wanted to volunteer.
Okay, we have a volunteer base. You can go online and actually, or you can just email us basically, and we'll add you to our volunteer database. And every month, every last Saturday of the month, we have a cleanup at the Kids Beach Garden, and this is where everybody actually comes out to see, okay, what can we do?
You need to tell us the email address and the website.
Okay, so it's medicng.org. So medicng.org, and if you want to email us, it's contact us at medicng.org. And we're also very active on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter as Kids Beach Garden.
Can you tell us about your GoFundMe?
Okay, yes, we also have a GoFundMe page, and what we're trying to do with that and everything else is a beach restoration project. So the beach restoration project, we're focusing on our shelters on the beach, because we had a very bad natural disaster, basically, a day before we found the turtle. So we're trying to build shelters so that when volunteers come, you know, there's a place, you know, people can see and talk and things like that, and rest as well after, you know, a major cleanup. We're also doing our tree planting on the beach, on the shorelines as well, coconut trees, where we're working very hard to integrate as many people as possible, especially a lot of men on the coastal communities, to the anti-poachers squad. So basically everybody that helped that day, I'm trying to induct them, you know, so that when they see something, they can say something about it. We're also working on something we call a sea turtle sanctuary, because in the whole of Nigeria, we don't have any aquarium, basically, that can actually take care of these turtles, even for a day. So what happens, not even for a day. So what happens is a catch-22, because when we find those turtles, we want to keep them and find out if they're okay before we put them back into the water. But if we keep them, they are actually at a higher risk of dying, because there's no proper facility here, and then you have the poachers just right behind wanting to collect everything. So I'm just like, if we can't keep them, it's basically between the devil and the deep blue sea.
So will that be a first step for you then, to try to raise money to get an aquarium, or to get
so a sanctuary,
basically. Sanctuary, okay. This Kids Beach Club, it's Garden is located in Elegushi?
Yes, Ikate. Yes, Ikate. We're just right beside the Elegushi private beach.
So how did you acquire that space?
Okay, we had an organization, a company basically, donate the piece of land to us in the meantime because they don't have any use for it now. And so I approached them and I said, okay, I do a lot of things with nature and we want to start cleaning, we want to start protecting, we want to start planting. And they said, you know what, go ahead to do it. And that was in 2015.
Now, for our viewers who don't live anywhere near a Legoshi or a coastline, how do they sort of inculcate environmental best practices at home and to train their children? And also about plastic recycling, how do you go about ensuring that in Nigeria? Because we're a long way away from other African countries like Kenya and Rwanda who have actually banned the use of plastic bags.
Okay, I would say the first thing we need to do is change our behavior, our consumer behavior. You know, we've gotten to a point where everything is disposable. You're disposing, you have a party, you don't use any glassware, you use disposable cups, you use disposable plates, cutlery, you know, you go out, you buy lollipop sticks for the children, so there's so much single-use plastic out there. You go to the supermarket, you're taking all the plastic bags out when you can actually take your bag in and then use your bag. So I think the first step is to commit to changing, just one at a time, because baby steps basically, you know. When you do that, when you're conscious about that, and then consumer behavior changes, and you know things start to change, and a lot of people will start to do better.
So taking basically your own bags to the supermarket instead of using the single-use bags, you know, recycling as much as possible, separating your waste, reducing your plastic. There's so many things, you know, there's so many things that you really don't need, you know, that we take, you know, and every time we take it, we become consumers of that. And you know, with a city of almost 22 million, over 22 million people, imagine how much plastic, single-use plastic, basically we consume every single day. You know, even the water bottles, you know, sometimes you buy a water bottle when you're going to work or something, just take water from home, and even doing that alone, you've reduced your plastic in a day. Reusing a plastic water bottle, but isn't that dangerous for your health? I thought that was carcinogenic.
The single-use plastic, you know, we have plastic bottles that are BPA-free. And,
okay, like children's feeding bottles.
Yes, and you know, those bottles are not carcinogenic. So, you know, so when we have these conversations, we can now know that, okay, this is a safer option. But the single-use plastic bottles are. Yes.
I'm very interested in your anti-poaching reform because, again, I keep playing that video in my head when you're trying to save that turtle. What's the incentive? What is the conversation you're having with the local community? Is there any incentive for them? How do they understand that this is very important to keep the ecosystem safe?
Okay, when I reached out to them that day, and they were all, oh, our money, 500,000, and I said, oh, that, I can't even believe I said that, but I said, you know, we'll make you feel good, we'll put you on TV, and they were like, you said it in Yoruba, is that what we are going to eat? Please, we need the money, you know, and I said to them that what you're doing would be good, you know, for the environment. But moving forward, basically, everybody has needs, and I know that they have needs, and I'm trying to make them feel good about the work they're doing. And the first step is actually to bring them in, you know, to get people that would mentor them. We want to actually make sure that they have different traits, you know, vocational skills, and even the ones that have, we want to enhance those skills. You know, we want to, so many of them are like, they're not graduates, but, you know, they finished secondary school, want to be able to introduce, you know, computers to them and make them feel good about themselves in any way. And mostly, you know, there's the need for food. You know, they have children in school, there's the school fees to be paid and things like that. So we want them to join our community and let them know that we actually care about them because they care about the environment.
Well, but this is a demand and supply situation. So there are those who are demanding for this, for the poachers to supply. Are you also looking at that end? I mean, for this particular turtle, you said there was a Chinese buyer waiting for it. Are you also looking at that end of this situation? What do you intend to do about those who demand such?
Okay, I would say it's two ways. If there is no seller, there can't be buyer. Exactly. And if there's no buyer, there can't be, you know, a seller. So what we're trying to do is to stop people from selling it. And, you know, when you go into those communities and they're like, no, we're not selling, we're protecting what is ours, you can't do that in your own country, don't do it here. You find out that when they start hearing things like that, obviously they're going to stop. They're going to stop even going to those communities to buy. And I would say that I also think the name and shame approach is actually very, very important. Social media is actually helping us to do these things. And then when you empower, you know, the anti-poacher squad with telephones, you know, you can record conversations, you can put pictures out there and everything, and put it on social media, and you know, we'll see how it goes from there.
You think you can achieve this without actually paying them? Because in Kenya, even in the former USSR, with their poaching of their mountain big cats, they have to end up paying the poachers to become anti-poachers.
Okay.
They have to put them on a salary.
Okay.
So that it's worth their while financially.
Okay. I would say that maybe for me, maybe I'm just favored basically, you know, because I didn't pay 500,000. I didn't pay 300,000. I didn't even pay 70,000. You know, what I did was to inspire them and to make sure that they know that there's a better life and there's a better way to deal with these things. And I know that as many times as we do these things, and when you show people that you actually genuinely care for them, you know, money would not be a currency anymore. Loyalty basically would be a currency.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. So what exactly does the anti-poaching law say in Nigeria?
Well, you cannot, basically paraphrasing, you cannot sell or traffic or even keep any endangered species in your possession.
And so when you say that you're frustrated with this tossing back and forth from regulatory agencies, have you considered with this GoFundMe initiative of yours of actually empowering some people to be enforcers at the beach?
Enforcers, yeah, that's basically what the anti-poaching squad will do eventually. We have not inducted anybody. We still have to train them because we don't want a situation where, you know, violence breaks out because you're trying to save a turtle and then somebody loses a life. You know, it's very, very, you need to know the type of people. So we need to train them. We need to make sure that they know what to do, you know, and how to go about it, the phone calls to make, how to apprehend the turtle, or how to apprehend the poacher, how to keep the turtle, what to do with the turtle in the meantime, and so many other things like that. So it's after we train them, we know that they actually can do these things.
And these will be the people in the shelters that you hope to
in
build.
the
shelters?
No, the shelters are actually for volunteers that come to clean after they're sweaty and they're tired. They need a place to stay or relax before they eventually go home. They need a place to network, they need a place to learn and things like that. That's what those shelters are for. But the people that we're actually reaching out to are people that live on the coast, the coastal communities there. They are youth leaders, you know, their security, their local security, you know, the fishermen and people, they already have their homes. So we're saying, let us build a force, you know, all of us together to protect what is ours.
Oh, very good job.
Thank you.
I know that you named the leatherback turtle.
Yes, I named her Glory.
Glory.
A shout out to all the glories that are watching.
Shout out to all the glories.
Yes, because it's when I saw her, I was in awe, and it was just magnificent. I had never seen anything.
That was the first thing. I couldn't believe what I was seeing when my producer sent the video. It was the most beautiful turtle I've ever seen.
It was so beautiful, like the leather back. It actually feels like leather.
Oh my
you know, and I was
to think that they were standing on that.
Imagine, as in.
Well, all right. Well, Doyin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
We hope Glory is doing well in the ocean.
I hope so too. Thank you.
All right, good job. It's time now for a short break. When we come back, my co-host and I will be speaking on Kaduna State Governor Nasser El-Rufai's statement causing an uproar on our take. Do stay with us.